I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Hey everybody, Ron here from The Truth About Addiction. Welcome to another beautiful show. Today we have a beautiful friend and a lovely guest, Robyn. Robyn's been a friend of mine for a lot of years. We go back a long way, and Robyn's also a beautiful musician, mum, just a good human being. Robyn, welcome to The Truth About Addiction, darling.
Thanks, Ronnie.
So what's the Robyn story, darling?
Well, how long you got?
Yeah, about that much.
No, the story, mate, the story.
Sorry. So Robbie, I met you a bloody long time ago.
38 years, mate.
38 years ago, is it? Wow, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, 38 years ago, you were a little young lady walking around with a guitar.
Yep.
Everywhere you went, you had this guitar and played beautiful songs. And I remember you wrote a lot of music. I remember one stage there, we were thinking about trying to do something together, and you had this bloody book of music, and it was good music, and just my life was crazy at that stage. And yeah, it's a shame, but it is what it is, and it does what it does, So you had a problem with drugs and alcohol?
Yep.
From an early age, or where did yours start?
Yeah, I suppose, I started smoking dope at 12, but life was a bit awkward for me, shall we say, when I was growing up. We grew up in a middle-class family, had to have everything sort of, just so to look like we were pretty together. But behind closed doors, there was a lot of passive-aggressive behavior and, angry control stuff going on. So, but anyway, yeah, started at 12. I don't know where to go from there. Anyway, so, and I used pot for a long time. I joined bands very young. I started to play music in pubs at around the age of 15. And I wasn't supposed to be there because I was underage, but nobody knew that until I turned 18. And then we told them all. But, and, just having lots of fun, really, just, playing music, finding that it was fantastic to work in a band, better than working by myself. I taught myself how to play, and I always loved to sing, and I like to write. So that's been my main, one of my main joys in life is to write music and sing and play and try and outdo myself with ideas musically and stuff. But I can't read music. I've never been able to, and I'm just, it's just one of those gifts that I believe I have, that I can just learn on the fly. So so anyway, drugs and alcohol have been a really big part of my story. Playing in bands and in pubs really didn't cause any drama for me with addiction, but it wasn't until I stopped playing in pubs and just sort of took a break that I met someone who used, and they used pretty hard, and we used speed for about 8 months, and it just destroyed my life. And then we went on to heroin use. He had been a user before, and that was sort of the gold for me. Heroin was like it was the part of my life that took over, and the part of using that made me just go, everything is around this. And, without really knowing that I was doing that. So then other levels of, stealing, trying to provide for my habit. My partner was also a thief, and pretty, pretty quick to sort of get a hold of stuff that he didn't own. And anyway, I mean, there's lots of stories that I could go into, but that's sort of just the start. By the time I was 18, I was pretty much a hardcore heroin user. I used for about 6 months then, and when I hit 19, I hit my first detox, and it was in a private detox in Bondi Junction. It was one of those psychiatric units, and it was just a joke, and then the next one. So it felt like for years and years I went from using to detox, using to another detox, using to detox. And eventually, some friend of mine in the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous said to me, you need to go to rehab. You're not going to get well this way. So so I went off to rehab, and the rehab was in Goulburn, and it was about 18 months to 2 years long. And I just kept thinking to myself, if I spend the next 18 months in here getting well, then I won't be spending any more time out there using. So, when I get out of here, I won't be going back to using. So I stayed there. It was pretty tough. It was very, very consequence based. It was, hardcore on a lot of levels, and it was very invigorating on the levels of community and time with other people and bonding. It really gave me a lot of that sense that I didn't have in life prior to going there. I finished that program at about 19 months clean. Just before I left the program, I met a man that I found incredibly exciting. He had finished the program maybe a year before, and he had a pretty sad story to tell. And him and I started to go out as I left the program, and we ended up getting married maybe a year later. Well, we got married because, old school. My mother said, you can't, I was pregnant. So, it was a situation where I was told I can't have a child out of wedlock. It was in the 80s, for God's sake, like I could. But it just, and I always wanted my mother's approval. So we got married, and it was a lovely wedding, and he's a great guy. He was really good value, but he had no responsibility and no way of finding the responsibility in himself to be on board for, family life, the responsibility of money earning. Anyway, so, it was pretty devastating because I was always feeling like I was in having to do all the adult stuff, the stuff with the child, the stuff with the money, the stuff with the food. And the only arrangement that we had when we got married was that I could still play music. Well, that sort of went because he, threatened to not look after our daughter when I was going on a gig. So I had to cancel, and I canceled so much that I lost gigs. And so then it was just into being a housewife, really. And I fell pregnant again, and he disclosed that he had been, because he was clean as well, he disclosed that he had been using. And we moved to the city again, and then it just went to shit, and he left. He just left, and the next time I saw him, he was with another girl, and I was homeless with 2 kids, and I'm just like, this is not happening, and I was so angry to be put in that position, but I was also like, what do I do now? I was sort of relieved because we didn't have very good communication, but so anyway, he turned up to see me. I thought he was going to give me some money or something, so I could get somewhere to live. And he just turned up, and this girl that he was seeing, he spent all our savings on going to the snow with her, taking her up to Queensland and stuff like that. And it was just tragic because, here I was with these 2 kids. My son was in hospital. He was a very sick infant, very sick baby. And so I was living in my car outside the hospital with my daughter because there was nowhere for me to go. And I was 4.5 years clean at the time. And I went from there to, a girlfriend of mine that I didn't know very well. She said I could live with her. She lived in Belfield. And I came there. She had about 4,000 children. So it was, just add 2 more. And so it was fun, but it was hectic. It was hectic, and it wasn't in a manner that I saw life needs to be around kids, but it was safe, and we were there, and she was a couple of years clean, and it was a really mad time, but it was also, a lot of laughter and a lot of warmth. And I think the one thing about the stuff that I've learned about being clean and having I suppose, providing a community that I can be a part of is that there's always that level of love and laughter to pull us through, because basically as an addict, and all the addicts that I know, we're very macabre. We think very dark, and our sense of humor is very dark, and so we can have a lot of fun just staying clean. But and the more stresses that I have in my life, the more, bizarrely enough, the more fun I've managed to have with my friends, because I reach out, and I've only learnt that through staying clean, through the program of Narcotics Anonymous. So anyway, that situation happened. Then I met a man who ended up being a bit of a monster. I won't go into that, but I left, I was 7 years clean when he bashed me to a pulp and in front of my kids, and the next day I used after 7 years. And I chose to use because I didn't believe that the recovery that I had was worth shit. And I used for 2 years. I lost my kids to foster care. I lost my house. I lost pretty much everything. Main thing I lost was my self-worth and my belief that I could do more with my life than what I'd done. And I went off to a couple of rehabs. They wouldn't take me because I was on methadone, and I was on a really high amount of methadone because, you just can't get enough into you. And for me, I found that when I was clean and I used, there wasn't anything in the world that would take away the awareness of what life was when I was clean, and yeah, so I went to about 3 rehabs. They wouldn't take me. They wouldn't bring me down off 108 mils of methadone at all. And so I just lied. I went to this Christian rehab and I told them I was on 100, and they said, oh, they don't usually do it, but they'll try. So they brought me with maybe 2 Valium a day, and I was truly fucked. I was really for about 6 weeks. And but the other side of that was, again, one comment, the first comment that was valuable was remembering that at the Goulburn rehab, that if I go there and I spend 2 years there, at least I'll spend the rest of my life clean if I do the program. And this situation was, if I go to this rehab and come off this medication, at least my kids won't wake up one day to their mother dead. And that's really was the motivation for me. And, they were in care, supposed to be in care for 2 months, ended up being in there for 18 months because I was so physically sick. And I wasn't sick for 18 months, but just getting my shit together and stuff. And, it's a long road back, when you relapse. And, and then I sort of got back into life. I got a house, I got my kids back, which was lovely. They were crazy. They made me crazy, and yet I managed to stay clean some way. And I met my second husband, and just to pull that through quickly, I don't know how much time I got, Ron. So
plenty of time, Don. You're an hour.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I met another man. He was lovely. He was very staunch man, and I felt like he was very safe to be around. He was like he was strong inside and out, and I felt the loyalty from him straight away, which was, lovely anyway. So I had 2 kids, so he learned to be a dad on the fly with my 2 kids, and they were hard, like they were really hard work. They were damaged, they were reactive, they were insecure, that, they were out of any kind of routine. And yet I'm so grateful to the foster family that took them, because, they took both of them and they looked after them well, so they were part of the family. And I'm so grateful for that. They could have ended up in a horror story. And this man came into my life. He was a hard worker. He did what he had to do to just maintain his bills. He was an adult, and all of those things that, for me, based on my history, like in my head, I'm going, score, tick, 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 because he was so, just a genuine, authentic guy. And so we ended up getting married. We ended up having 2 more children, 2 girls, and life was hectic. Like I had 2 teenagers and I had 2 toddlers, and he was working really hard in drug and alcohol, and I was working in women's rehabs, women and children's rehab, and it was just a crazy, crazy time. But on the outside, we looked really together. We had a car, I had a van, like we were paying these things off and doing, we just, we had it together. And we were even going on yearly holidays. My God, like I hadn't been on a holiday forever. So the last, say, couple of years of our marriage, we were going on yearly holidays. And so then we were getting that flavor for, trying to, I was doing Narcotics Anonymous meetings. I was spending time with people. I was involved with women's early recovery. I was very grateful to be a part of this service that I was in. I had a lot to do with the kids' well-being. And I don't know what happened, but we just got to a stage where it was like, It was just everything was on tap and it was all done and the routine was there and we were bored. And it was a lot about looking back. It was a lot about being, okay, so I'm a bit over meetings, or I don't really want to go to one tonight, or I don't really want to see those people. And as time went on, you know, it was probably one meeting every 3 months for a while there. And it just got to be where it wasn't a priority in our life. And before we knew it, we'd had a drink. And I was never an alcoholic. And he was an alcoholic as well as a user. And within, like, I don't know, within 3 weeks, we were smoking dope, drinking alcohol, like insane at home. And obviously my kids were using drugs, my older kids, and they were, you know, they saw the pattern straight away. You know, we weren't trying to hide anything, but it looked pretty bad from their perspective because they'd only known me clean pretty much. And all my kids were born in recovery. So they'd only really known our lives, their lives clean. So, you know, here we are starting with alcohol. A couple of weeks later, you know, we're using heroin. And that was always my drug of choice. And from the minute that it started, it was doomed. Like everything just went to shit straight away. The first thing that goes for me when I have relapsed in the past is my self-worth.
Yep.
It's like, I'm such a failure. I've lost it all. I have no spirituality. What did I do that for? La, 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 la. And then slowly everything else, you know, coming from a place of, you know, paying off 2 cars, both working respectable jobs in drug and alcohol, both able to maintain and look after 4 children, you know, to going to a place where we had no food. All our stuff that could be sold for money was, you know, right down to leather jackets and shit like that. And, you know, maybe within 3 months we were selling the toys. You know, we were selling whatever we could sell to school. And, you know, after about 3 weeks doing that, so it was about 6 weeks into our using, we went and got on methadone in this program that was run by recovering addicts. And for me, it was like a godsend to turn up to this place and see people that I knew well. Just going into this clinic every day was soul destroying for me because I'd been 20 years clean, for fuck's sake, you know, and it was soul destroying on the level of not just that I was there, but I was there with dragging my little kids there. You know, I was there with, you know, a car that was unregistered. I was there, you know, getting on the bus with kids that were like still in their pajamas because I needed to get dosed straight away, you know, just horrible shit that, you know, I felt shame about. So that actually went on for about 2 years. I still managed to, because of my addiction to heroin, I kept my dose right down so I could still use every day, whereas he actually went right up and stopped using, and he went right up about, I don't know, a lot. So I managed to use every day. I don't know how I managed to use. Some of the things I did to get dope were like, at the time I'm thinking, wow, that was clever. I got some money, you know, and other times it's like, what are you doing that for? At this age, I'm like 45 and 45 and I'm using, right? And I hadn't been using most of my life and I'm using. And I start working in a mature ladies parlor. And it was just the most degrading thing I ever did because I was never someone who could, you know, flaunt it. I just want to crack up laughing. And you know, you can't do that. You know, you sort of don't get much business that way. So yeah, so I did that for about 6 months and I started to get selfish, you know, because I was earning the money and he was there with the kids, and basically he was there on the nod and the kids were just running amok. All this stuff ended up being, you know, where in the last part of my working time at this place, I started to cut into the dope. So he never got half. I just told him he got half, but he never got half. Mm-hmm. And I was always heaps more stoned than he was. And it was a bad look, you know, on every level because it just made me unavailable to the kids anyway. I was resentful, you know, that he wouldn't go and do crime. I was resentful that I had to do all the stuff, but I was also so desperate because of what I needed. I needed money to support my habit. So I don't know how that finished. I stayed in MAPS, which was the place that I went to with methadone to abstinence outpatient service, and I stayed there for maybe 6 months, and then it was suggested to me, I was still going to meetings, I was still in major shame. I just couldn't get my shit together at all. And then a friend of mine said, you should go to a place called MTAR. And I knew MTAR well, and I hadn't been there, but I knew it, I knew of it, I knew when it started, and I was in the rehab that started it many years before. So that was a good idea. And within a week of having that suggested conversation, we had a call from docs, saying, look, these kids are not safe anymore, la, la, la. You guys are sick. She seems sicker than you. You've got to go to rehab, maybe one at a time, because Jeff wouldn't foster the girls out. He just refused to. And I just thought, whatever. But I'm thinking, he's not well enough to look after them, but, he refused to. So, and the people at Docs actually said to me, she said, you need to go into treatment or I think you're probably going to die. And I just, because I was so broken and I couldn't see how other people could see that, but I was just so broken, and it's so funny, hearing back after, like I had some friends that, well, they weren't really friends, but they picked up at the same chemist that I picked up at prior to going to this program. And they said, oh, I thought you died, when I saw them again in my suburb. And I said, no, I thought you died because you were just so sick. And I'm like, was I really? Anyway, so we made a decision that I'd go to treatment and he would mind the children. And then when I got out, I would mind the children. So we did that. And I rang up MTAR. And because I knew a lot of people that worked in MTAR and people that ran the umbrella of that rehab, I got in very quickly. And I remember saying to people, oh, you got to wait 7 days, or you got to wait this and that and the other to be, off any other drugs. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Going into this treatment centre, the weird thing was that you do an assessment first and then you go back a week or two later, depending on whether you're still on drugs or not. Because I was primarily a heroin user, I had to not use heroin for 7 to 14 days or something. So, I got in there and I'm sitting down there going, okay, so have you used that one? Yep. I said, have you been using every day? I went, yep. And they said, well, you're not supposed to come in here. I said, so should I go? And they went, no, you just stay. And I just thought, it saved my life. Mm-hmm. It saved my life because I didn't have the capacity to keep going. And I knew that, and having the kids out of my life gave me more room to, to self-destruct. It didn't give me room to get better. So if I was in somewhere, I might try to get better. In that place, there was, I don't know, I was in so much pain, emotional pain. And because I had dealt with some emotional pain by being clean before, I couldn't stop the bus. It just kept coming up. And I'd packed my bags 4 times. I walked out to the actual start of the rehab twice. And I decided that each time it was like I was going back to nothing. I was going back to shit. And I was unable to, in good conscience, see that it was a really good move to leave this place. I fucking hated it. I really hated it, and I hated it because I was so vulnerable and I was so broken. I didn't hate the program. I didn't hate the people. I just hated the fact that I had to pick up the pieces, of the mess that I made. And I feel like crying now.
That's okay.
So I got out of there, I got my shit together. I couldn't go home with the girls. We ended up in a motel. We stayed there for 6 weeks, and that was probably a really good thing because we were bonding. And we wouldn't have been able to bond the way we did if we weren't in this tiny room. And it was good because they were unsure of me. I hadn't been there for 6 months. Prior to that, I'd been a complete lunatic using. By this time, before I even used, my older kids had moved out. They had gone to stay in with other friends or gone to stay in refuges or something. And at the time, I couldn't take in any more of what they needed. So anyway, so I got home. I had my kids and me. We were stuck in this little hotel room for 6 weeks while they had to fumigate the house because I don't know, Jeff had some people there were bugs everywhere. It was really, really shocking. We started life again. It was hard to get my shit together. It was hard to do, to try and be aware of the fact that I need to be responsible for myself, but I also need to be nurturing and safe for my children. It was not the easiest thing in the world to parent again as a single parent, feel like I'd blown up my life everywhere, feel like they gave me stories of what happened when they were with their dad, and it was just horrifying, like not just stories that were dangerous, but they weren't hurt, if that makes sense. My youngest was 6, my next one was 9, and they were wandering around a big shopping centre like at 9 o'clock at night, just wandering. And you hear stuff like that and you just think, I'm in a place where I'm actually locked up, and they're, I can't get to them. I can't do anything. And he's out of it on the couch. So that stuff was hard to handle. But, when I went back home and took over looking after the girls, he didn't want to leave. He didn't want to go to detox or anything. And I had to lose it for a few days to get him out. He also had his brother living there who was on bupe and selling bupe, and there was no way he was going to stay there while I was there trying to stay clean with kids. And it's weird going through all these memories. Anyway, so when they were finally out, I had a bit of a space where I could go, okay, let's build on this. And everything was there was just chaos everywhere. And it took a little while for myself and my husband to separate without angst, without conflict, without problems. So even when he came back to take the girls, we were fighting. Actually, most of our marriage we were fighting. So it was one of those situations where, it's never going to get any better. So you just come here and I'll give you the girls and fuck off. That's sort of how I felt about it. But it wasn't about him or me. It was just about the mess, I think. And my girls were coming into being teenagers. My oldest girl, Courtney, she was now about 25, and she was, she was working in pubs. She was a really bad alcoholic. She left a big mess when she drank, and she was like a binge drinker, and she would have all these things going on for her that were damaging. A boyfriend that assaulted her, she crashed her car, all these things that were just like chaos on wheels. And she was hard work. She was emotionally hard work, because it was all about, oh, you don't love me as much as that one. And that was always going on for her. She didn't believe she was cared about as much as my other children, which wasn't true. She was just hard work, just hard work. Doesn't mean she wasn't beautiful, that she wasn't fun, that we didn't get on well. It just, anyway, so that's just to give you a picture of my kids. And then my son, he was a little bit of a runaway, if you like. He smoked dope since he was 11. He was about, 22, still smoking dope. And he was one of the lads, he was around the area wherein he was one of the lads, and he taught himself to rap. And he used to hang around guys that were rapping and stuff like that. And they were all very cool, and and he had some good fun, and he had he's got a good sense of humor. And he was sort of doing life in chaos, but with a few goals in mind, which was different from Courtney, which was a good thing. And he had come in and out of the rooms of NA with trying to get clean and then not getting clean and trying to get clean. Anyway, so those two, had an understanding of addiction and recovery. Courtney had a time in the rooms too, and but neither one of them got clean. And then Nathan started using ice, and about 5 years later, Courtney started using ice. And so they were quite mad then. They were like unreachable, and yet, they're still my kids. So they'd come over and they'd be either aggressive, in tears, or, upset in some way, or not able to cope with things, or just manic and crazy. So it would be a situation where my boundaries were, we'd stand on the front step and we'd talk, or we'd sit on the chair out the front. but I, because I knew their motives were not pure, that, the last time I let Courtney in the house, he robbed me of knives and forks, for fuck's sake, just stuff that you don't even need. But, and I just think, so that's it, coming, just because they were using, I was very uppity about it. I didn't want them to be, putting that energy in my home. I was quite scared of how they behaved and when they lost it and stuff. Madison, age 14, she had a really bad eating disorder, and it got worse and worse and worse. She was down to half her body weight. She was already skinny, and we had been seeing specialists and doctors at Westmead and all this stuff, and eventually she needed to be hospitalized, and she got hospitalized for about 8 weeks, and she hated it in there, and it was probably a really good thing for her to be there, but we didn't know what to do. We had to go into this place in Westmead and stay there as a family and watch what she eats, and there were cameras on us. It was just fucking awful. We're sort of just trying to get through the whole thing of, she couldn't be alone anywhere in the house or in a bathroom. It was just, and that lasted for about 2 years with her, and it made me so unwell with fear and worry. And I ended up myself in a psychiatric hospital because I couldn't cope anymore. It was too much. And for some reason, with all the help and stuff, she started to snap out of it. Like, we had chains on all the doors and the fridge and shit. It was just like, this is a joke, and that's what we were told to do, and so she finally snapped out of it by changing her focus to a boy, and the boy became her world and she became his world. And she's 24 now, and she has a 4-year-old son, and she is still with his father, and they're still together, and it's rocky. Their relationship's rocky. Why wouldn't it be? But but they have a good life, and they're working towards. They're not working to sit still, and you see it in them every day. Madison didn't go to school much longer than her eating disorder happened, and she left school by the time she was 15 or something, and now she's doing a uni degree in psychology. And I'm like, how do you do that with a child, a partner, a job, and she does that, which is much more than I could ever do at her age.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of her, really proud. And she's a very good soul, and we get on very well, as people. It's not like the mother and daughter syndrome. It's like we're good friends, we're good people. And she likes a binge drink as well, like Courtney used to, but hers is a little bit more contained because she has a child, and she has me ringing her saying, get up, come and get your fucking boy, because otherwise, he'd be at my house for a week. And, and I wouldn't mind so much, but he needs his mum. So, and then my last child, has been very high maintenance in a very strange way. She has a thing called borderline. And that, what that actually means is that if you're trying to communicate and get on in the world and you have borderline, you usually go through the world trying to slap people in the face or insult them to get reassurance. And that's what she's done through her whole family. She has made some major mistakes with her siblings that they won't talk to her anymore. They don't have anything to do with her. She can't handle anything that we say or challenge her with. She just, and at the moment she's in one of those modes, as I said something to her on the phone, and she hasn't contacted me for 2 months, even though I've rung her every week. Part of me is going, oh, well, at least it's easy. The other part is me going, I really miss my daughter. I really miss her. And, so I just go about what I do, which is about being an adult, sending her a message saying, I love you, I miss you, be nice to have a chat, not worried about the conflict at all, just say that stuff. And, I've done that continually for the last 2 months, and that's as good as it gets. With there's been a hell of a lot of adversity, with what's happened for them, like the other things that I could discuss or say, like my son ended up in jail at 17 for pulling a gun on the cabbie. And it was just like, what are you doing? And he said, oh, it's not a real gun. Jesus Christ. It's like, he did that and you just think, but he was locked up for 4 months as a child because he was like 2 weeks off his 18th birthday. Yeah. If it had been 2 weeks later, he would have been in, it would have been very different for him. So, and he's just gotten in jail again. He just got out like a month ago from being 3 months in jail for theft and assault. And I just think, you want more for your kids, yeah? You want more than what they aspire to when they're struggling with addictions and stuff. But before he got in jail, he was running from the police, and then what happened was Courtney, my oldest daughter, she was found dead, and she had died of drug-related issues, but she only had traces of dope in her body. When the coroner got back with the information, she died actually of pneumonia. So her self-care was so bad that she had this terrible illness going on in her chest that she just didn't face, didn't front, didn't go to the doctor, didn't anything, and sometimes, I think possibly from self-pity and think, God, haven't we done enough, But losing her has floored me. It takes pretty much all my strength to keep positive or on a level where I'm not really dark. And because I have my own mental health, depression stuff, and I'm really aware of not going down that road. I can't talk about Courtney without crying.
It's normal. That's allowed. It's allowed.
I can't let go of the memories of, the beauty of this child. And she was, like anyone who knows me well, they know that I saw Courtney as hard work. She was really hard work, but she was beautiful, she was hard work because she was reactive and she was strong and opinionated. And the reality of recovery today is, and I don't know how people get through this stuff and not use. I just think to myself that I've had too many experiences of giving up, that it is inevitable that I will eventually die if I use again. And because it hurts so much for somebody close to me that's died, I can't wish that on my family, and so that means I walk around a lot in tears. It means that I start a project of some sort and might get started and then give it up because it's too much for me to do. I started cleaning up my garden yesterday, and I'm not really a gardener, but I do like being in there, and I hadn't been in there for months. I started cleaning it up and I cleared like 2 plants and then I just fell apart. I'm fucking looking at it now going, well, shit, you still got a lot of work to do, And my reality of recovery is that the only way I've ever known how to stay clean is through Narcotics Anonymous. And it's not so much, well, for me to stay clean and well and move forward on a spiritual level is the work of Narcotics Anonymous, step work, sponsors, sponsoring, service, all of that stuff I do today that I, sort of half-pint did before because it was expected, not because I wanted to get well. And in the last, say, 3 years, I've put a lot of time into that side of the program. But I really believe the main thing that holds me in life, that holds me to try and stay well, is the community of people that, I've known. I'm so lucky to know, because of my history, I'm so lucky to know so many people and so many good people and know them on a level of, I suppose, equals, where I never felt that before because I was the one that was always busting and using. But now I've actually felt like, you know, we're equals. Like I might be, you know, 50 years under somebody else as a recovering addict. Like Ron, he's 4,000 years clean and I'm 6. So, you know, but we're still friends. And it's not like I don't need to tell him the truth. It's not like I don't have to have any boundaries or any like walls up with the people that I know in these rooms because we are all walking the same road. And I think that stuff is, you know, it's miraculous. I think, you know, there's other places that have levels of fellowships, you know, religion, all that stuff, but they don't have the openness and the acceptance of somebody else's truth.
Yeah.
They have, you have our truth, and then we'll love you, you know, and that's not how it is in Narcotics Anonymous. And I think my ability to keep going forward is about the people and pushing myself to ring people and having a go at meeting up with people. And then I'll go through a bout where it's like, I don't want to see any fucker. I don't want to know you. I don't want to know anything about you. Just don't ring me up, you know. And I just bail on really good people because I can't deal with another human being in my life. And I think that's a lot to do with grief. I don't think it's a personal thing where I, you know, get a voodoo doll and stab them for no reason at all. But yeah, I'm incredibly lucky. I've been very loved in this fellowship, and I've been very loved for no other reason than people love me. And I just think, wow, that's awesome. You know, I used to think people love me because I play guitar, or people love me because, I don't know, because I let someone stay in my house or some shit like that. But now I look at it like everybody that I know that I don't think there's too many people that I dislike, but everybody that I know I love. And I just love them for who they are. I don't have to know what's happening in their life or the intricate details of their feelings and shit like that. I just know that I love them. And that's getting a bit mushy. I was going to tell Ron then that I loved him, but I don't want
You love me.
I do, I love you. Just the most awesome thing to be a part of something that when the shit hits the fan and you're sort of on your knees, people are there. You know, people are there to go, it's all right, I'll help. What do you need, you know? I had this crew get together and work out doing meals for me, like Meals on Wheels, NA Meals on Wheels. And they made all these meals, you know, like they had different rosters and shit. They made all these meals like after Courtney died. And, you know, they have one different person every fortnight or something for about 4 weeks. And it was really lovely, but it was really strange food. It was really lovely. The food was, you know, the food was such an honor, but it was also food that I wouldn't or couldn't eat sometimes, but it was still that thing of the loving thought was there, you know. And, you know, it's just that thing of just being grateful for what is offered. I guess for me, that's what it's all about. And that's what I believe I give back. You know, I give back if people need me to do something or need something from me that I believe I can do, because I used to do the things that I couldn't do, and that was always very stressful. I look back on my experience as an addict, because I've always been an addict, and I have so many beautiful experiences in recovery. I don't have too many beautiful experiences of using.
Yeah.
And you know, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I also, you know, mentioned my 2 husbands and a partner that I had that was treacherous, and I forgot to say that since 2010 I've been with the same partner, and he's just wonderful. He's just lovely, and he's very gentle and very fun. He's very different to me, and you know, just very different person that I would pick. And I don't know, you know, and being attracted to the levels of violence that I had in previous relationships or the levels of yelling at you.
Abuse.
That's the one.
Abuse.
Abuse, that's the one. And this man has never abused me,
Mm.
never said anything to me that has been condescending or lowering of my self-worth. And he's never done anything that has set me to a place of where I think I have to protect myself, you know, emotionally or physically. And I am so incredibly grateful for that. He hasn't got any money. It's a shame.
So,
But it doesn't matter, you know.
yeah.
That was he's very creative, and I'm very lucky to be in a relationship with someone creative, because I'm creative. And anyway, so as you can see, through all those times when I was using and trying to get back, there was no time for my music. And I've done a fair bit of music over the last well, mainly over the last 12 years. Oh, actually, there was one situation that I forgot to say. So when I got clean that time, I was with this partner and we stayed clean. And I stayed clean for 6 years after MTAR. And then after MTAR, what happened was 6 years, I had major depression, and I had gone through quite a lot of depression since Maddie's eating disorder. For some reason, like it would just triggered everything in me, like I had no control. And I'm watching this thing where the way I see it is the nature of an addict is to put things into you so it changes how you feel. The nature of a eating disorder is to allow yourself to have nothing. And that changes the way you feel, because if you have nothing and you don't have any nourishment or anything at all, you feel on some level more in control. And it fucked with my head. I couldn't get my head around it, you know. It was very strange to try and work with. And it comes from the same place, like a place of worthlessness and stuff. But anyway, so maybe 2.5 years after that, I've been in and out of the psych ward again for major depression. And then one day I just went up the road, and I know people up the road that use, and I went up the road and said, I had a girlfriend of mine ring me, and we'd known each other a very long time. And Janet, she rang me and goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing this." And she went, "You can't do that. You need to go home straight away." And I said, "Well, I'll think about it." She said, "No, you need to, I'll stay on the phone with you while you go home." I said, "Well, okay." So I turned the car on, talked to her on the phone, and then she hung up. I turned the car off and went straight into the dealers, and I got myself some dope, and I had a shot, and I OD'd, and I was basically what looked like to them I was asleep on the couch. And that's, I don't know whether I was or not, but I was like, you have a shot after 6 years clean, and you know and I had half a shot, and it was still too much for me. You know, it was too much for my body. And anyway, so my partner, he was freaking out. He rang my closest friend and said, "I don't know where she is. She's been gone for 3 hours, la la la." And she suggested for him to look, have I got a Find Your Phone app? And so they looked on that, and they found my phone like 4 blocks away, and they came down there to where the phone was, and they saw me basically asleep or dead on the couch. I don't know how long I'd been there. And then they got the paramedics, and they came back and they Narcaned me, and it brought, you know, and then I went home all wobbly and shit. And then I used for another 4 days, and then I put myself into detox again for 6 weeks, because I knew I wasn't someone who was just going to be able to go 4 days and go, right, I'm sweet now. And yeah, and I've been clean ever since. And I just hit 6 years and 2 weeks. And that's pretty awesome for me. And I feel very lucky. So this is the 4th time I've had 6 years clean. And when I measure it from the time that I had 13 years clean, I've had 31 years of clean time. And in that time, I've learned more about myself and life than I ever would have if I was using it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you know, and the other side of that is that, people relapse, and I've been a relapser, and I've always seen it like it's a shame attack when you come back and stuff. But as I've gotten some time and some self-worth and done some work on myself, I actually see that, yes, I'm 6 years clean, but I've had 31 years clean time.
Yeah.
That's the truth,
Yep. I
And
say it to people all the time that.
yeah, it's true, isn't it?
Just because you relapse doesn't mean you had a lobotomy.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, so the last thing I want to talk about is my music. I'm very lucky to be a musician. I've always loved music and playing music. My music has a sort of sultry, sad edge to it because that's who I am, and I'm very proud of the work I've done musically. And I always wanted to put an album out. And about 8 years ago, I put an album on SoundCloud, and I'm very proud of it. And I'm in the middle of starting to get together my second album, but I'm not very fast with music. I'm not very fast with the things that I really want to do. I'm fast with the things that I have to do. But yeah, so it's on SoundCloud under the name of Robyn King. The album's called First, and yeah, show your friends.
Yeah, beautiful. So the album's called First.
First, yes.
And some of those songs will be some of those songs that we probably listened to a long time ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, just sitting there, and, because there's a couple of things that always come to my mind with you is, one, the young girl walking through King's Cross with the guitar, the very beautiful young lady, and extremely talented. I remember, you playing it some nights, I just look at you and think, fuck, she's so beautiful, and then you came into the world that I came out of. I mean, like, I was born into that world, and I seen you become part of that world.
Yeah.
With Russ, and and then and even with Jeff, they were guys that came from a lot harder world than what you came from.
Yeah.
And I sort of, I seen the devastation that you were moving into, and the heartache and the sorrow and all that sort of stuff, But one thing you've always done, you have always remained true to yourself, which is a really important thing. It's really important that you remain true to yourself. And look, you're a miracle. You're a walking miracle. You've always been kind. You've always been generous. You've always been loving. There's not many people I know that can say any bad word about you. You know what I mean? And the thing I remember is your wedding. We bought the two Jaguars. We bought the silver Jag and the gold Jag wedding.
Yeah.
We took them up there for your wedding. And I think I was a wedding driver.
That was very
a lot
cool.
of beautiful memories. Last time I seen Courtney was at the Who's reunion, I think 10 years ago. I just come out of jail.
Wow.
And then Nath come up here and lived up near my area for a little while and hang out with me for a little bit. I mean, and you just see he was confused. We're powerless over our kids, yourself,
Yeah.
One of my kids are in recovery, I've got another son who I don't talk to. Oh, he doesn't talk to me, actually, for some reason. He's got an issue that I don't even understand. And you know what the reality is? Because I have this incredible program, I don't have to understand.
Yep.
I just have to accept that he doesn't want to talk to me. Good. And it's a lot easier. Sometimes it's a lot easier when they make those choices. It's, I had a sister I never spoke to for 30 years because she was a practicing alcoholic and a drug addict.
Wow.
And she ended up by dying in active addiction. Since just before I came home from jail, my half brother died on methadone. He was a speed freak, and the idiots gave him some takeaway, gave him a 120 ml takeaway to drink to bring him down, which killed him. Russ died. This is just before I got released. My own son had died. My father had died. All that time I was in prison. So I had my own son, my half brother Russell, which was really more of my brother than what my half brother was, and my father all die in the same period of time that I was away for that 10 years, 8 years in prison. And, and I went through a lot of darkness and questioning and things like that, and a lot of anger. I got really angry. I get angry at people when they die.
Sure.
I do. I get really angry at them, because it's my selfishness.
Yep.
How dare you make me feel? How dare you leave me? And then I had to turn it around to, well, maybe they're better off. Their pain had stopped. You know, I had to adopt that attitude that maybe their pain had stopped, and maybe that's what, you know, that's what was needed. You know, and when I always come back to me being not an atheist, I don't like using that word, but me being a spiritual person, not a religious person, I always come back to, who am I to question my higher power? Because once I question my higher power, I become my own higher power. And I can't do that. I can't afford to be my own higher power. Because when I'm in control, I always make mistakes, massive mistakes. I make really silly choices. Because once I think I'm in control and I take my will and my life back, I become insane and I make really insane decisions because I think I'm manageable and think I'm powerful. You know, so I just got to accept, you know, I had a friend who was my grand sponsor. He was 64 years sober in AA. And he used to say to me all the time, Ron, the secret to recovery is acceptance. After 64 years of being sober, he used to say to me all the time, he say, kid, he used to call me kid. I loved it, you know. I'm 68 years of age, he used to call me kid. He only died 2 years ago. His name was Andy Anderson. It's really ironic.
Yeah.
When you think of AA, Andy Anderson, he just said to me, well, I mean, must have knew something was wrong. He called me Andy Anderson, you know, AA. And he was the drunk of Cootamundra, which is a little country town in New South Wales. You know, he was the local drunk. He ended up being the mayor. Got clean. He ended up being the mayor of Cootamundra, the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. He edited my book, which I still haven't printed. I'm such a coward, you know, because, you know, yourself, you're right. Our writing is so personal that you're afraid. You're afraid of, one, you're afraid of judgment, but two, you're afraid that it mightn't be as good as what you think it is. It's not even what other people think. It's you know, the lack of reassurance and, you know, it's just a really, really funny thing because it's such a personal thing for us. I think a lot of writers write without the feeling. I can't read a lot of books. So I start reading them, I think that's just shit.
Yeah.
The same as a lot of songs I listen to, and I think I can't listen to that. It's just shit. Because I like to listen to lyrics. I want to hear the story. I want to feel the emotion. You know, and that's what I've always had with you. Whenever you've performed, it's always been a very emotional thing. You know, your songs have got meaning and substance, which I think, you know, I'm a little bit old fashioned. I'm still listening to Neil Young, The Needle and the Damage Done. You know, you go into my iPhone, it's full of fucking 70s and 80s music because that's where the soul was. You know, that to me, that's where, you know, that's where the shit was happening. You know.
Yeah.
Even the Beatles, you know, some of their stuff that you listen to today, you think, wow, they were so advanced. And we start to become teachable. We started to listening to what people were saying, you know, and I think, wow, I'm such a slow learner. I'm such a slow learner and I'm such a slow forgetter. It's so easy for me not to remember how fucking horrible the last week of my using was.
Yeah.
I remember that all the time, no matter how, even now, it's been 36 years, 7 months and 8 months. And, you know, I don't forget it like it was yesterday. I never forget my last relapse, being on 120 mil a dome, trying to get over it, trying to rob someone to get on.
Yeah.
Walking down the cross with no money, no clothes, stinking. You know, you don't know you stink. I didn't know I stunk. You know, but just fucking, but feeling like shit and missing the people of NA.
Yeah.
It was insane. I was using this young girl. She used to say to me, you're the most miserable person I've ever used with. You have a shot, you go, oh, Wednesday night, Paddington. Oh, Thursday night, William Booth. Oh, Monday night, you know, McKinnon. And she's going to me like, you have a shot, then you talk about NA. Like, you're ruining our stone, man. You know, just chillax. And I think, well, I'm not stoned.
Yeah.
The stone had gone.
Yeah.
It was the block out. I wanted to be unconscious. I wanted to stop the noise, you know. And I just learned that the only way I can stop the noise is by prayer and meditation and by working the steps. I say to people all the time, if you haven't got a sponsor, you've been sponsored by a fuckwit. You're sponsoring the last person you used with. How'd that go? If you're in a 12-step program, you're not writing the 12 steps, you're not in a 12-step program. And if you've got a sponsor, you're not using him, you haven't got a sponsor. You know, my sponsor's coming up to spend the weekend with me this weekend because we have a convention on the Sunshine Coast.
Oh yeah, it's the Sunshine. Oh, yeah, up the top. Yeah.
Yeah, mate. We got our convention this weekend, and Mario's coming up to spend the weekend with me. You know, he's been my sponsor for 36.5 years.
Wow.
Long time, same guy, same sponsor. Never since I've had him as a sponsor, I've remained clean. So, you know,
Yeah.
he must be telling me something.
Yep.
You know, because I was voted the most likely never to get clean in that same
I
year.
didn't see that. I didn't see that with you at all. I saw that you were someone who was going to always be a rebel
Yeah.
in recovery as well.
Yeah, I've always been a rebel without a clue. I don't ever know what I'm rebelling against. I think I'm more revolting than rebel.
Oh no.
But, you know, I love recovery. You know that. I love, and there's certain people in the program like you talked about that are always going to be my friends. You're one of them.
Yeah.
You're always going to be my friend. You're always going to be there. Like every time I see you, it's like I seen you yesterday.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's been
It's good,
8 years
isn't
or
it?
something. It's
But I
weird. You know?
never had that with any other people or society anywhere.
No, no, no. We see each other and it's like, hey, what's going on? We say, hey, talk about our kids and talk about shit and, you know,
Yeah.
you're talking about some bloke and I'm talking about, oh, yeah, I'm remarried and I got a new girl. And, you know, I've been really lucky in relationships. I've been extremely lucky.
Yep.
But I believe in giving we receive. You know, I've always tried to be a really good husband. You know, I've never been faithful. That's been my Achilles heel. Now I'm faithful. It's really nice. Now it's
Yeah, yeah.
beautiful. Today, my life is the life that if I had to write down the perfect life, I live it today.
Yeah.
You know, and it's such a blessing. And it's so simple.
Yes.
I don't want to be a gangster. I don't have to be impressing anybody, and I don't sleep with all the pretty girls and all the, you know, and all the naughty girls and whatever else, you know, and hanging out with all the naughty boys. They just bore me.
Yeah, well they would.
Yeah.
They
That
bore
really
me now
bores
too,
me.
because age does it too, because I'm 60 now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, my God, like how did I get to be 60?
Yeah. I'm
I
68.
was only 12 yesterday.
Yeah, right. I'm still 12, my wife reckons. She's one of the things she says to me nearly every day is, how old are you? And I say 9. I can act it, yeah. Or else they say, how old do you want me to be, baby? You know, no. Yeah. Yeah. Like, you know, we're blessed, we're survivors, mate. You know, we
Yeah.
are what we are. You know, we mightn't have the perfect script, but I tell you what, we have the perfect ending. And that's the way I see it, you know. It's a journey, it's not a destination, you know, and the journey has been one of learning and of teaching. And I think that's my job today. And that's what this podcast is about, trying to entertain and educate.
Yes.
You know, I want people to know that's why my business is called The Truth About Addiction.
That's great, mate. It's a really good thing you're doing. Ron. It's really good.
It's just why we can reach more people.
Yeah.
And I get really nice messages. I had a message from a lady the other day. She's in remote Australia somewhere. And she said, you're the field marshal of recovery. She goes, I can't get to meetings. She goes, and I've been coming off 120 mil of methadone, and I was halfway through it and I was going to stop. So I listened to your podcast. She said, it's given me strength to carry on.
Wow.
That's enough. That's enough.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's enough. And that's why, you know, I try to do these podcasts with people that I know and people that I don't know. But to me, success is being here one day at a time. Doesn't matter how many days in a row it's been, it's today.
Yeah.
So whoever got up early this morning has been clean the longest.
Yes.
And a lot of my friends like you've been my friend for 38 years or 36 years or whatever it is. I don't see, how long you've been clean. It's not relevant.
Yep.
It's not relevant.
You know what's funny, Ron? I don't know if this goes through your mind, but I don't even know what the occasion was, but it seemed like there are a lot of people around. And I met you down in the dining room of Who's Goulburn. Now, I remember meeting you, and I don't know whether it was because I already knew Lee or not, but I remember meeting you and thinking, this man's got some grunt, you know, just the way you size someone up straight up, you know, and it's always been like that. It's always been like, oh, hello, you know, just you had a real warmth and a friendliness to me, and it's always been the same.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same. As I said, you're a sweet little sexy young chick running around this cross with a guitar. And I remember you hocking the guitar once. I said to you one day, "Where's your guitar?" And you go, "Oh, I fucking hocked it." And I'm like, "Oh man."
I know.
Yeah. It's just funny things that go in our memories, And
Yeah.
it's just crazy and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. And and I
Yeah.
really appreciate you coming on, because a lot of girls don't want to come on. I don't know why, and I just don't understand it, because the women have got to have a voice. We had so much trouble in
Yeah.
Narcotics Anonymous, 41 years ago when I got clean. Not many women were staying clean and getting clean.
Yep, that's true.
And they're all going, "We haven't got a voice." Well, today we have got a voice, and it's time that we stand up and we go, "Yeah, okay, we're all equals. See, we're male, we're human beings first, we're male or female second, and we're addicts third."
Yeah.
And we have to remember that we're human beings first.
Another way you could word it is by going, "Look, I really need women for the podcast for the women in rural Australia, because they don't get any voice from other women, and it would be really helpful." And then they'll sort of go, "I'll be there."
Yeah, even where I am, up where I live now, the most time anyone's probably got up is probably about 8 years. Like, not that matters, but it does. But I say 8 years, but that's 8 years that they haven't had. Like, you've got 30-something years of recovery, information. Where these girls have they've only been around for 8 years, so you can only give what you've got.
Yeah, true.
And it's so important, And some of the women I spoke to, I've said, come and do the podcast. Like, "Oh, I've got too many wrinkles." I said, "Wait a minute, we're not selling products. We're trying to save people's lives. I
Yeah.
don't care about wrinkles. I don't care about,
Yeah, it's
It's
true.
nice,
isn't it?
you know what I'm like. I say, we're not doing it naked, darling. We're just doing it with clothes on. I don't care about your wrinkles.
Well,
I-
Ronnie, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, beautiful. I love you. You be safe.
Too. And if you need me to do anything else for you, I shall, because I'm just that kind of gal. But if you need some help with anything, I'm very happy to do this stuff. And all right, Ronnie, all the
Be
best,
safe.
buddy.
Bye,
Same
darling.
back. Bye-bye. Take care.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.